Hello students, you're welcome to another lecture series on LAUTECH Open and Distance Learning Center. This is ACT 302, Cost Accounting 2, and I'll be taking you through study session 3, that is service or operating costing. In the previous study sessions, emphasis had been made on entirely with manufacturing industries. The units of output from the manufacturing process have a physical and tangible existence, while for service industries, they are intangible, such as the services that you enjoy whenever you visit a bank, hospital, restaurants, etc. However, the method of costing used in service rendering that are being undertaken are known as a service or operating costing. At the end of this study session, you should be able to 1. Define service costing and give examples of service industries. 2. Differentiate between service industry and manufacturing industry. 3. Discuss the unit cost measures that are adopted by various service industries. And lastly, explain how to determine cost per service and units. Meaning of service costing. Service costing is used when an organization or department provides a service. It is a costing method that is concerned with establishing the cost, not of items of production but of services that are being rendered. Service costing can be used by companies operating in a service industry or by companies that wish to establish the cost of services that are carried out by some of their departments. Hence, service organizations do not make or sell tangible goods. Service or operating costing is used in all organizations that provide services instead of producing goods. Despite the lack of tangible form, service outputs still have a production cost, and managers must be aware of the costs that are involved in order to run the business. For calculating the price of each service, it is very necessary to collect all the expenses relating to that service. Hence, a service cost sheet is prepared, which follows all the costs that are related to a specific service. These costs are usually calculated on the time basis. Circumstances suitable for service costing. Service costing is used by companies in the following circumstance. 1. A company operating in a service industry will cost services for which sales revenue will be earned, such as electrician, car hire services, transport services, etc. Also, a company may wish to establish the cost of services that are carried out by some of the departments, such as cost of computer department, cost of vans for distribution, etc. Examples of organizations that provide services. The following are some of the organizations with a list of services that they render. 1. We have the transportation companies, they render transportation services. We have hosting and domain, they render IT services. Schools, they render education services. Hospitals, they render hospitality services. IBEDC, that is Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, they render electricity services. Differences between service industries and manufacturing industries. There are 4 main differences between the output of a service industry and the products of a manufacturing industry. These differences are, however, summarized as shown above. Now, on the basis of intangibility, service industry, their output is intangible. It is in intangible form, while for manufacturing industry, their output is in tangible form. Heterogeneity. For service industry, the nature and the standard of the service will be variable due to high human input, while for manufacturing industry, the nature and the standard of the output is strictly on specification. On the basis of simultaneous production and consumption. For service industry, the service that you require cannot be inspected in advance of receiving it, but for manufacturing industry, the output can be inspected in advance of its receipt. And lastly, on perishability, for service industry, the services that you require cannot be stored, while for manufacturing industry, the outputs that you require can be stored. Unit cost measures for service costing. One of the main difficulties in service costing is the establishment of a suitable cost unit that represents a suitable measure of the service that are being provided. Now, in some situations, it may be necessary to calculate a composite cost unit. However, a composite cost unit is more appropriate if a service is a function of two variables. Hence, below are some of the examples of service with their respective cost units. One, we have haulage companies that their cost units or their units cost measures for their service is in ton per miles. Then for hospitals, we have patients per days. The next one is public transport companies. We have passenger per miles or kilometer or seats per miles. Then we have hotel services. We have guests per days or occupied bed night. For electricity generation, we have kilowatt hours. For canteens and restaurants, we have meals that are served. Then lastly, for education, we have full-time or part-time students. How to determine cost per service unit? In service costing, it is not uncommon for labor to be the only direct cost that is involved in providing a service or for overheads to make up the most of the remaining total cost. It is sometimes necessary if in service costing to classify cost as being fixed, variable or semi-variable. If costs are semi-variable, it is also necessary to separate them into either fixed or variable constituents using the high-low method. Hence, the cost per service unit is calculated by establishing the total cost that is involved in providing the service and dividing this by the number of service units used in providing such service. Hence, the total cost for providing a service normally includes labor, materials, expenses, as well as the overheads, just as the same for the products that are produced in the manufacturing industry. Thus, calculation for cost per service unit is shown as projected up. The cost per service unit is equal to total cost for providing the service divided by the number of service units used to provide the service. Factors determining the quality and cost of service. Effectively managing service operations is crucial to controlling labor costs and improving customer satisfaction. By addressing 6 drivers of performance, executives can go a step further, turning their service operations into a key source of competitive advantage. Many companies have successfully transformed their manufacturing, R&D, that is research and development, and other business functions, improving their performance while stripping out cost. Yet far fewer have optimize their service operations, even though they can have an outsized effect on customer acquisition and retention. When service levels and costs are properly balanced and optimized, they can deliver a substantial and sustainable competitive advantage that competitors will find hard to match. In view of these, 6 principal factors have been identified responsible for determining the quality and the cost of service. Hence, let's highlight these factors one by one. First, we have the product and process design. 2, we have service level labor requirements. 3, we have service network structure. 4, service process management. 5, workforce management. And lastly, we have the measurement and compensation. I hope you had a wonderful time listening. See you in the next session.